Flowering cherries. There are many different cultivars of flowering cherries, and it's a very popular tree all over the world. Japan really reveres this tree. I love the flowering cherry. They're beautiful when they bloom, but they have one unusual problem. You see, flowering cherries are all grafted trees, and you can see the rootstock down here, and you can see where this was grafted. And the flowering cherries seem to have this anomaly that the roots that develop from these trees are usually enormous. And sometimes they're so big. I've seen trees where the roots are bigger than the trunk. Now, this client unfortunately is very worried about her water supply, and there's a big root coming across here, and she asked me to take the tree out. I made the recommendation that she hire somebody to excavate out the water line and find out if there are any actual roots that are damaging the water line. And if there are, you could sever the roots and put up a root barrier, and certainly buy yourself a lot of time and possibly resolve the issue once and for all. So you don't have to take out a tree if it's adjacent to some pipes, but it could be a bit of a challenge. Now, digging a trench, you'd have to go down at least, I'd say probably 18 to 24 inches, depending upon how deep this water line is buried. Typically, they're about 18 inches. Gas lines are typically about 24 inches. I say typically because I find them at different depths. But they've got another flowering cherry over here, and we took one out last year, right here. That was a flowering cherry, and you see it's still alive. And she was wondering why this tree isn't dying. Well, it's very likely that it is root grafted to the adjacent flowering cherry. Two of the similar type of tree that can graft together can keep a stump alive. Now look at this. This tree was grafted at the ground. This is quite a bit different. This is a different type of a flowering cherry altogether, but look at the root system from this tree. That's the root stock. The root is massive compared to the grafted portion of the trunk. So there is a big dissimilarity between the rate of growth on the root graft of flowering cherries. And I've had situations where these big roots have lifted sidewalks and lifted driveways and caused all kinds of problems. And people say, but it's not a big tree. You're right. It's not a big tree, but it's an incredibly aggressive root system that sometimes grows right up on the surface. Now, a lot of it has to do with the initial grading and the development of the property. At one time, this may have been scraped down to hard pan and maybe had a little bit of topsoil brought in, so the surface roots don't have a chance to get down much deeper. A lot of times, the way a root system grows is dependent upon what happened prior to the house or the development coming into place. So heavy equipment, scraping the soil, the initial impact to the area really has a lot to do with how root systems develop. Flowering cherry, one of my favorite trees. I will be really irritated if we have to cut this tree down, but it's her choice.